Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 133 of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to be with you week after week and having conversations that the Black community must have, needs to have, and sharing perspective and thoughts and ideas to counter the general narrative, to counter the mainstream ideas and some of the norms that we have. We have habits and behaviors and accepted thought in the Black community that really have not been beneficial to us. We have a set of norms in our homes and in our communities and our schools that just are not serving us, that's not bringing us the success and the productivity that we deserve and that we need. So with the podcast, I really hope to challenge our thinking. I hope to activate us into behaviors and activity, and in general, just share insights and ideas. For me, I really think that we need an awakening in the Black community. We need a renaissance of thought. We need a renaissance of behavior, of consciousness, of mindset, because what we have right now that continues to keep us and maintain this condition, our present state of condition, it just does not do. It's these outcomes, they're just not acceptable. We are entitled to a better way of life than what we are experiencing in this nation. And, for some, the improvements are, some people think they're going to come through our political involvement. Some folks think it's going to come through our spiritual or religious activities. Some people think it's going to come through our economic activity. And, I would say it's a combination of all of that. But what we need in all of that is an elevated mindset, is an elevated consciousness. It's a mindset about self for self. And we are, in a very, very strange time right now, heading out of 2020, where not only are we facing this pandemic of COVID-19 and the coronavirus, but we also have this pandemic of violence against Black people that has been perpetrated by law enforcement. We have violence against ourselves, perpetrated by ourselves. And so this is a very unique time where we have to just examine the methodology that we have employed that has not been successful. We can't keep doing the same thing the same way and expect different results. And so that is what the Nora Speaks podcast wants to challenge you to do. Not just go after the results, but to go after the results with productivity and behaviors and ideas that will bring about the success and the change that we're looking for. And we can't always be in protest mode. Certainly after the killing of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, we can go back to Trayvon Martin and beyond that. We operate from a protest mode, which is us considering other people and what they've done to us in the foremost thought and in the foremind or foremost thinking guiding our behavior. But what I would suggest is we don't have to be in protest mode against somebody. We have to be in proactive mode for ourselves, because operating from a point in a place of crisis continually that's just not going to sustain. It is not sustainable. And what we do and what others have studied and have observed in our behavior is that after we have this emotional protest, this emotional response to something that's happened to us, once that smoke clears and those emotions settle down, then we go back to behavior and the same activity that we came from. We don't really engage in activity that's going to produce change. And this is what social scientists have learned about Black people in America. So that's why I say we can't always be in protest mode. We have to be proactive with ideas and activity and a mindset that is for self, not just against others. And that's a whole different state of mind. And that's a whole different set of activities that we engage in when we're proactive versus protesting. And in this conversation of the Nora Speaks podcast, I want to talk about that phrase that we hear so often in the Black community, I'm doing me. Usually when I've heard I'm doing me, and it may be the same for you, there is someone who's talking about their, they don't want to join an organization, an association. They're happy just being an individual. Often they are fault finders and critics of those who are in organizations or the leadership of organizations. And they just decide, well, I'm just better off by myself. I'm better off just doing me. I'm not going to get involved with the broader community or with outside organizations or organizations in the community outside of my home. It's just me, my family, this household. That's all that is relevant to me. I'm just doing me. And this is something that we hear often in the Black community. Unfortunately, we have this individualism, this individualistic mindset. And that is something that I have to say I've exclusively heard from Black people. I have not heard that coming from other groups of people. And in part, other groups of people work collectively. They come together, whatever their problems are or whatever their goals are, they work towards meeting those goals. Whether they agree on everything or not, they understand that the broader goal is foremost and has to supersede any individualism or individual aspirations. The betterment and the good for the group comes before the good for the individual. And this is something that we have to get across in our community and teach our children the same, that we have to think about our group needs, our community needs, our collective needs, so that we can be focused with collective activity to meet those needs. And here we are living in a world with societies of people who are, really each community has a trash collection. Each community has a postal service delivering mail. Each community has, roads and streets and people who are responsible for the bridges and making sure our roads are in good repair, right? So we're living in a society where we're literally depending on other people. And within this, we have folks that say, I'm just doing me. I think, man, I'm glad the town set up trash collection so that my trash can be collected. And I know that the person that's collecting my trash is somebody that I depend on. And I appreciate that. And this is what we get when we live in a community. And of course, these are municipal services, but it even comes down to parent-teacher organizations. It comes down to civic organizations, political organizations. There are networks of people and associations that help societies run. And I would encourage those who are listening to this show to be a part of some organization or association that's contributing to society. That way, not only will you have a voice and you could be active beyond just your household, you can contribute, but you can get something from it. We can't just live in our own cocoons. And this I'm doing me mentality really hurts the Black community in so many ways, and it hurts us personally. being an individual, being a singular person, somebody that is anti-organization, anti-unity, number one, it's selfish, right? So when a person says this, then they have made a decision to withhold any kind of contribution that they could make, whether that's of their skills or their talents or of their money, their time, their resources. Number two, it's short-sighted because, as I said, you're going to need somebody from your society. You're going to need somebody from your community. You're going to need somebody from, the state governance to help you navigate or resolve some kind of issue that you're going to have, that your children are going to have. You may want to open a business, right? Where's your consumer base going to come from if you're just doing you and you're an individual, singular person? Where do you think you're going to get clients from if you're not out and engaging with other people, getting other people to know you and trust you, and also contributing to an organization or an association? So it's short-sighted. And then also it confines our growth. It confines our opportunities. It confines our perspective, and it can impede our access. Again, I'm talking about just a moment ago, wanting to open a business. Well, there's things that you're going to need to know. There are people who are a part of networks that can help you with those things that you don't know. But if you and I just want to be an individual, we want to be all by ourselves, we don't want to rely on other people nor have people rely on us, well, then we make our climb much, much steeper than it needs to be. And so there's so many different organizations that you can be a part of. There's church and religious organizations. Like I said, there's political organizations, civic organizations, community-based organizations. There's the PTA, the Parent-Teacher Association in our schools. There's so many organizations, and I would encourage you to be a part of one in your local town. I mean, there's even social media organizations, although that's good to, be in communication with people. But specifically what I'm talking about is an organization where you can show up, you can have an immediate impact in the room, a contribution, people that are going to rely on your real activity. So I'm really not just talking about organizations or associations through social media, which is not all bad, but we also have to show up in the real world. And so there are limitations in individuals and individualism when we have this idea or this rejection of group activity. And so I'm going to go through some of the benefits that we have when we are a part of group activities or teams. I used to hate in school when our teachers, or in college when the professor would assign a group activity. Now I have to, and we had to schedule time, coordinate schedules, divide up the work, depend on people to do their part of the project. You just think, can I just do an essay? I don't want to have to deal with other people. But now that I'm older and I'm much more mature, I understand the benefits of the group project, and I understand what the professor, what the teacher was helping to establish for me and others through those group activities. And so this is what I want to share with you. And I have 10 benefits to group activity. Number one, it teaches and helps us practice our negotiation skills. It helps us practice compromise. When if I just had to do an essay there, I'm not having to negotiate with anybody but myself. I don't have to compromise. And there's definitely no conflict resolution, right? If you're working with two or more people, there may be conflicts. There may be a need to negotiate. But when we're by ourselves, then we eliminate those opportunities. Number two, working with groups and associations improves our communication skills. When we're working with other people, we have to relay our thoughts to them in an effective way for them to receive it, right? So many of us are legends in our own mind, and we think that we have the brightest and best ideas. But if we can't effectively communicate these ideas to other people, then what good is it? Then we limit ourselves and we limit them. And we are not fostering understanding amongst each other in the way that we could and that we should. And so when you're working with other people, improving communication skills is just a must. It's something that happens. And not only relaying what it is that you're thinking, but also listening to what others have to say, right? We love to talk. We don't always like to listen, and not just listen, waiting for the other person to pause so that we can jump in with our ideas, but really listen to understand what someone else is saying. And then when we're challenged on our ideas, when somebody pushes back on our ideas, questions our ideas, then we have to manage our emotions and manage our ego. The perceived attack that this person is doing when they're questioning me. How dare you question me? Well, this happens when we're engaging in activities with other people. They're going to ask us questions. This is a skill that we all have to learn, being able to effectively communicate, because if a person doesn't understand, they're going to keep asking questions. And when a person stops asking questions and they don't understand, then we all have a problem. So 2, communication skills. 3, when we're working with groups and other people, then we have an opportunity to broaden our own perspectives. We're able to see beyond our own worldview and our own world experience. And to be able to see and understand other people's experiences, we have to be good listeners. We have to ask people questions about their lives, about their cultures, about their own experiences. And we have to spend time with people who are different from us, people who come from different households, different cultures. So being with other people, working collectively with other people, it broadens our own perspectives. 4, when we're working with other people, then we are accountable. When we're just by ourselves, now certainly you can be accountable to yourself, and you should be. We should be accountable to ourselves. But it's another level when there's other people depending on us, when we have a duty beyond just our own individual selves. And there's an unselfishness there when we are in observation of a duty, where our efforts and our time and our commitment impacts other people. And many of us don't want this accountability. Many of us don't want to have other people relying on us. We don't want to be in a commitment with other people. We have phobias about commitment. But when we're working with a group, when we're part of an organization or an association, then we have to be accountable. And when we have other people that we are organizing with, then we have more opportunities to be accountable, to be responsible for others greater than just our own individual selves. 5, when we're working in a group, when we are involved in group activities or group operations, we have support. We're not alone. We're not by ourselves. There's other people that we can depend upon, and others can depend on us. Others can be a resource to us, and we can be a resource to other people. And coming behind that, 6, other people can motivate us. We get motivation when we're working in a group. When we are accountable to other people, we're less inclined to quit. We're less inclined to just give up when things get difficult, because we know, man, I have other people relying on me. I can't just not show up because there's other people. And then also, other people can encourage us. It's very encouraging when we have other people standing beside us, because your drive is going to ebb and flow, right? And when you have somebody else that's with you and they may be in high drive and you're in low drive, they can kind of pull you along. So it's good to be in activity with other people, because they can help you stay motivated, and vice versa. You can also motivate them. But it's so good to have other people that can encourage you when things are difficult. When I'm even thinking about, study groups, when folks are, in school. I used to work in a law school, and I would see the law students, having their study groups and encouraging each other and helping each other. Anything that we're trying to achieve collectively as a group, then we have one another there to keep encouraging us, pushing us forward when we might not have the drive on our own. And it's so good to have other people there. They say the same thing about working out and exercising. It's better to do, or it's good to do it with a group, because, if you're taking a daily walk, if you're taking a daily run, if you're in a Zumba class or a yoga class, you have other people there to encourage you to keep going. So there's so much that can come in terms of motivation when we're part of an association or a group. So number 7, constructive feedback. I remember when I was in college, and I learned that, it was just so good to have other people look at your work and critique your work. And there was a group of friends, and we would do this, and, whether it was punctuation, grammar, spelling, whatever it was, I really found great use when I could have a friend really critique my writing. And there was one individual who also participated, and this person would get so angry, would get so upset, would get such an attitude because there was some grammatical error or spelling error, or, I don't quite understand what you're trying to say here. I think this is, an incomplete thought. You need to add something here. And this specific individual would get so angry. And I just thought, okay, we can't keep doing it with this person, because they just can't handle the criticism. They can't handle the feedback. When we are part of a group or organization, group activity, or a team, athletic team, it's so good to have other people there that can give us constructive feedback, that can push us beyond what we may think our limits are. For many of us, we can be legends in our own mind. And that individual, when that person wrote their paper, apparently they didn't think it needed any correction. They thought it was an A++, but it wasn't. And, our untrained academic eyes, were able to find mistakes. And this person just took it so personal. I think, man, you have this opportunity to kind of run this by your friends. Take advantage of it before the professor chops it up. Listen to what your friends are saying. When we're just by ourselves, then we're reading over or checking things out. It's hard for us to find our own mistakes, right? Even authors, some of the best authors, they do have editors, right? They do have editors, because something can slip by. You might not see something. You could miss something. You might be leaving something out. So being a part of an organization with other people can give us constructive feedback in areas that we're weak, in areas where our character may not be so developed. And some of us don't want to be a part of an organization because we don't want those parts of us revealed. We don't want those parts of us examined or scrutinized. But it happens naturally in groups, and it's very beneficial for somebody who has the capacity and the interest in growing in that way. Number 8, collaboration. When you're working with other people, then you have the benefit of their talents, their skills, their resources, and they have yours. And so it's so good to be able to collaborate with people that have like minds, that have like ambitions, and you can get more done with 2 than you can with 1. So being able to collaborate with other people is really good. And then, number 9, being able to have a network. Having a network. The saying, membership has its privileges. That is true. So when you're an individual, because you just want to do you, Well, you're just a person on an island, right? By yourself. But other people who allow themselves to have the constructive criticism, who allow themselves um, uh, to negotiate and compromise and deal with all of the challenges that come with group activity, because it's not just because you're in a group, everything's going to be perfect. There's going to be challenges too. But those who are willing to endure all of that because they know the benefits that the group provides, well, then they endure. And there's so much more available to them because there's so much more available in a network than in an individual. And then just the last point, and I've touched on this through, much of what I've already said, but being a part of a group or organization, it is a catalyst for personal growth. It is a catalyst for character development. I mean, you and I, we can learn so much about ourselves so much more quickly if we are part of a group. Now, thinking back to, my college days when that friend would get the paper proofread, they might not have thought they were an egotistical person, but they learned, at least I hope they learned, because I learned this about that person, that, wow, they can't take criticism. And you might think that you can. You might think that, you have great character. But I'll tell you, when we have to work collectively with other people, not only do we learn a lot about them, it's easy to see other people's flaws. It's easy to see if somebody else is impatient or short-tempered or has some selfishness or has this or that. But man, being able to see that in ourselves, you can't see all of this in yourself when you're just by yourself because you don't have anybody there pulling, tugging, challenging you, right? But when you're in a group, when you're working with other people, I mean, I don't listen very well. I thought I was a good listener. I don't listen very well. You might learn some things about yourself that you didn't know. So being a part of a group catalyzes personal growth and character development, which we all need. We all need personal growth. We need character development. So, being an individual, it has its limits. And I know that, working with other people can be frustrating. It can be tiring. But, that's just the world that we live in. It's hard for us to get around needing other people. I don't know anybody who doesn't need other people except God, who has no need of us, but we have absolute need of him. Outside of that, we're going to need him and each other. So I encourage you to reject that idea, I'm just doing me. In fact, watch people who say, I'm just doing me, and you'll see them do very little. You'll see them doing a lot of very, very little and doing it very slowly. But those who work in collective operations, group activity with other people, you can see the difference, and you can see people who become good leaders because of it. So let's reject this individual notion, this selfish notion of I'm just doing me. I think about people who, look, I'm staying out of it. I know I saw them breaking into your house, but I'm just doing me. I'm just minding my business. I don't want to live in a community where my neighbors are so individualistic that they see something happening to my property, but because they're just doing them, they don't sound any alarm. That they just let it happen because we're going to be a bunch of people living right next door to each other, but just doing me. That's just not going to work, and successful societies are not built that way. And this is something that we find heavily in the Black community, and it's not working for us. We have to come out of our silos. We have to come out of our homes, and we have to, reach for each other and work collectively together. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree. Doesn't mean that, things are always going to be smooth sailing. But where in life is anything just going to be perfect, right? And the more we work together, the more we learn how to compromise and negotiate, the greater network that we build, the more character development that we have, we'll have much less problems, and we'll have less problems a lot faster. So I encourage you, get involved in some kind of civic association, not just any. Find one that fits you, though, not just any. I mean, I'm not an attorney, so I shouldn't be joining any attorney working group. That's just not, that's not a fit for me. But get with people who have like minds, like interest, and work together. Have a goal, share in other goals, share your goals, and work with other people towards achieving it. And we all will be better for it. I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Until next time, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, noramahammed.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.